Hello and welcome back. Today is all about gas exchange, so we're going to focus in on the respiratory system today. You might have a little bit of background knowledge on this, but let's dive in and see what we're working with. So, to begin with, breathing is not respiration. When we're talking respiration in the body, I mean cellular respiration, and that happens in the mitochondria, and that is the production of ATP. Breathing does not mean respiration, so get that right out of your head right now. Yes, we need oxygen to do cell respiration, but those two words are not interchangeable. Okay, so we talked about cell respiration. Ventilation itself is the movement of air in and out of the lungs, right? Inspiring and expiring, so like breathing in and breathing out. This is controlled by your ribs and your diaphragm, which we will talk more about in a minute. And then the gas exchange itself is the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. This is going into the blood at the alveoli, which are these little, like, I don't know, they look like grapes, like sacks of grapes in your lungs. Why do we even need this? Because we need to make energy, and so we need to get oxygen from the air, and we cannot diffuse oxygen directly into our bodies, like through our skin. Because we can't do that, we need a specialized organ system to provide this, this work for us. So we take in this oxygen, and then from once the oxygen hits our lungs, then we can diffuse it into our cells. We can deliver these nutrients that we're getting, and we can also exhale CO2, which is waste. So this system ensures that blood can be the medium for this. This is how our entire body gets oxygen and removes waste. It diffuses in and out of your blood as it goes through your muscles and your tissues and everything. And so without this system, we would be completely unable to get oxygen in and remove waste in a pretty good fashion. So gases need moist surfaces to diffuse. Our lungs are in our bodies, obviously, and the membranes are moist to allow oxygen and CO2 to diffuse in and out of the blood. And this maintains a large concentration gradient between the alveoli and the blood, which is what actually allows the oxygen and the CO2 to be able to move so easily and without us really thinking about it. The ventilation system itself, let's talk about that. Up here we have an alveoli and then a blood vessel, so you can see that CO2 is diffusing in and oxygen is diffusing out into the red blood cells to be carried off to the rest of the body. So how do we maintain these concentration gradients? So breathing in obviously gives us more oxygen, right? As we breathe in, we're taking in all that O2. Because the O2 gets to be so high in the alveoli, it wants to diffuse to hit equilibrium, so it will diffuse out into the blood. Breathing out removes CO2 and any unused O2, but removes that CO2, which decreases the amount of CO2 in the alveoli and increases the amount in the blood. So there's a difference in the concentration gradient, so CO2 will diffuse out of the blood into the alveoli to hit equilibrium again. The alveoli itself increase surface area for gas exchange. There's like millions of alveoli in your lungs, which is why you can consistently take in oxygen and breathe out CO2 without, like, just all the time. You're doing it all the time. You're doing it now. There's diffusion happening in your lungs right now. They have their own network of capillaries. It's just constant. This concentration gradient is constantly fluctuating between high amounts of O2 and trying to hit equilibrium. It is a very efficient system. The membranes are so thin, so the diffusion is very short. It doesn't take a lot of effort or energy to push through. Well, it doesn't take any energy because it's diffusion, but it doesn't take any real effort on the cell's parts to get the oxygen and the CO2 through these membranes because they're so thin. They're about 1 cell thick. And again, the surfaces are wet, so the gases are dissolved, which just makes sense. Must an oxygen molecule pass through to enter an erythrocyte? The answer to that is 5. So the alveoli and the capillaries are 1 cell thick, so it's going to pass through a membrane to get into the cell and then pass through a membrane to get out of that cell in the alveoli. It's going to do the same thing in the capillaries, right? It's going to pass through a membrane to get in and then pass through a second membrane to get out. That's 4 right there. And then there's also a membrane around the red blood cell, the erythrocyte, so it does have to pass through that 5th membrane to get into the blood cell itself. So the ventilation system consists of these parts. It's your respiratory system. So we've got lungs, we've got your trachea, which brings the air in, like it's your windpipe. You can feel it if you push on your throat. Don't push too hard or you'll choke yourself. The bronchi are what splits off of the trachea, and then the bronchi split even further into bronchioles. And then in there you have the alveoli, right? That's what we've been talking about this whole time. And then the diaphragm is this really muscular section at the bottom of your lungs. And then if we like zoom in, you have your, or like zoom out a little bit further, you have your ribs, which cover your lungs. It's protected so that you don't like puncture your lungs normally. And then you have the pleural membrane, which is, pleural means lungs, right? So the membrane on the inside, and then the innermost intercostal, which is just these like rib bones, and you have your muscles, your external and internal muscles that help with moving your ribs as you breathe in and out. So the specific mechanics of ventilation, so when you inspire, when you are breathing in, right, you're breathing in air, your external intercostal muscles contract and your diaphragm contracts, which means that it drops. So the diaphragm moves down, like towards your stomach, and then your external intercostal muscles, which are where your ribs are going to contract, which will kind of open up your rib cage a little bit. And then your abdominal muscles also relax, which makes room for all of this movement. And then the chest volume increases, pressure in the lungs decreases as air enters. Okay, so you are like opening up this whole cavity so that you can get air in. And then when you expire, when you exhale, the opposite happens. So the internal intercostal muscles contract, right? They're going to kind of bring back the rib cage in towards your lungs. The diaphragm relaxes, which pushes it back up into its normal position, which is like right here, you can see it going up. The abdominal muscles contract, which again just like helps push everything where it needs to go. The chest volume decreases, pressure in lungs increase, and air is pushed out. Last thing is you should just like pause this and just do this. I know you guys are super stressed in school and with everything going on in your life, especially as seniors. I know that you guys are getting swamped with college stuff and trying to just like finish off high school strong. So just take a minute, pause this slide, and just do these simple exercises, right? Just like chill for a second, just breathe deeply, turn your brain off for like 5 minutes, and just relax. Meditate a little bit. And when you're done with that, you're done with the notes. So great job, and I'll see you in class.